Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Scotland once again and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a few different styles, but I would say that this brewery are best known for their New England hazy IPAs. And we're going to have a look at one of their latest releases today, and I've heard very, very good things about this one. But these guys are still a relatively new addition to the Scottish beer scene, but they are one of the most highly regarded craft breweries in the country these days. So it is always nice to try the new beers from them. So hopefully this is another good one. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head through to Glasgow once again, Yoker to be precise. And that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Overtone Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Broken Clouds. It comes in at 10.5% ABV, and this one is a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, triple IPA. So yeah, this should be pretty nice actually. This beer was released in early December of 2021, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I just didn't have time to review this one before I came back over to Sweden. So here we are. I'm sure it will still be in good condition, of course. But looking forward to trying this. Let's crack on and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Overtone Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see me add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly, of course, because I brought a number of Scottish beers over to Sweden with me, and we will no doubt review more later in the year as well. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Overtone Brewing then. So as I've mentioned to you already, Overtone Brewing are based in Glasgow, and the company were founded back in 2017 by Bo Wei Wang, who is originally from Beijing in China. So he'd been a home brewer for a number of years before founding the brewery, and the name Overtone is taken from his love of techno music, and that's also why you get these lovely artwork, round dolls I guess you could say, on the front of the Overtone cans. So yeah, they're all inspired by different kind of techno music and things like that. But early on, Bo Wei hired Dan Miller, who's from New Hampshire in New England in the northeast of the US, to come in as his head brewer. And he had previously worked as a head chef, but also as a brewer in England, New York, and also in Scotland for 6 Degrees North, who are a Belgian-style brewery operating in the kind of northeast of Scotland. They brew in Lawrencekirk, but their main base is kind of like Stonehaven, Aberdeen kind of thing. But a brewery that you definitely need to check out as well. But also involved at the brewery is Martin Conahan, who had worked in the craft beer scene in New Zealand for a number of years. He takes part in the brewing, but also does other things behind the scenes as well. And they've also got Charlie involved in the brewing side of things too. So yeah, the team at Overtone Brewing Company is growing quite a bit, which is nice to see. But the brewery itself can be found in the New Albion Industrial Estate in Yoker, which is near Renfrew and Clydebank, and they began operations there back in 2018. And they are the first brewery in Scotland to basically centre their brewing around the New England IPA style. So that was quite exciting when they started up. But the brewery itself doesn't have a sort of fixed range, and they're always brewing different kinds of beer. Mainly they stick to brewing New England IPAs, but I've tried, some West Coasters from them. They do some Imperial Stouts these days. There's a couple of sours. We've had Hefeweizens, a few lagers, things like this. So they are brewing different styles, and as of January 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced just over 60 different kinds of beer. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Overtone Brewing Company for the moment. Like I said to you, they are still a relatively new addition to the Scottish beer scene in comparison to others, but they are one of the most respected craft breweries in the country today. So definitely worth checking out if you get the chance, absolutely. So yeah, that's everything from the history section of this video. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's it. Let's get on and actually have a look at this beer itself. So as you can see, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. You can see it is pretty similar to what we've seen from Overtone in the past. It looks very, very nice. Oh, that's the wrong way. You can see there you go, Overtone Broken Clouds, 10.5% ABV, 440ml can. It tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here, as you always get. So it says here, this one is a Mosaic Triple Oat Cream, a Mosaic dominated triple IPA loaded with oats and lactose for a velvety smooth mouthfeel, huge flavours of juicy passion fruit and ripe mango, along with vibrant berry and earthy notes. So yeah, this should be interesting. But the hop bill in this one is Mosaic, Cryo, Citra and Galaxy. So Mosaic, as we know, that's an American hop, 14% alpha acid. I always find that Mosaic is quite tangerine forward. It always gives me quite a bit of tangerine orange. But Citra we know well as well, another American hop, 14% alpha acid, a lot of mango, but it's got quite a kind of zesty, lemony, limey character to it in my experience as well. Can give you a few other things, right enough, a bit of passion fruit too. But Galaxy, we know, Australian hop, again about 14% alpha acid, and it's got a really quite pungent passion fruit character to it. And a bit of pineapple as well, from what I remember. But yeah, very nice hop bill in this one. But as they say, this one is supposed to be Mosaic forward. But I bought this beer at the Caledonian Craft Beer Merchant in Dunfermline, a new shop that's just getting started up. So if you do find yourself in Dunfermline, then yeah, Caledonian Craft Beer Merchant is worth checking out. It's got a really nice selection of some of the best Scottish beers and quite a few interesting things from England as well, actually. So yeah, a few of the beers that I've been reviewing recently have been bought from there. Always nice to support your local businesses, actually. But yeah, that's everything you need to know about this beer before we crack in. A 10.5% New England Triple IPA with Mosaic, Citra and Galaxy. So yeah, let's crack this one open. The Broken Clouds from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker in Glasgow. So here we are. It's my first IPA I've had in a wee while, actually. Come to think of it, I've not had a New England IPA in a couple of weeks, so this should be very nice. There we are. Ooh, that looks good. Right, that's enough to do the visual and the aroma for the moment. But yeah, so as you can see then, before the head disappears, I think we've poured about maybe 75-80% of this into the glass, but you can see this beer's poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. That's going to fade away to just be a very thin foamy layer quite soon, but it is going to leave a nice big ring just around the edge of the glass. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there, but I mean overall it does look pretty nice, actually. Yeah, in terms of the colour of this one, as I always say, I like comparing New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's just what the appearance reminds me of. But yeah, this one, I think it's fair to say, this reminds me of a kind of mango juice, a lovely kind of quite rich yellow. Now remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect the colour as well, but when it comes to New England IPAs, we don't normally have to care about those particular variables, if you like. Yeah, those ones are, those two variables are not really things we need to bother about. But yeah, looking on the camera, I can see it looks like it's quite a dark murky yellow, but to the naked eye, it is actually quite a bright yellow, this one. But remember, usually these New England triple IPAs, they can be a little bit darker than their lighter counterparts just because of the malt content. So remember, the haziness that you get in these beers, you can see this one is pretty damn opaque. The level of haziness that you get in these beers depends on the oat, the oat content, the wheat content, and also the yeast as well. But when it's a triple IPA like this, you know, it is going to be pretty soupy and gloopy, and you can see that with this one. This is a pretty murky beast of a beer. But yeah, I do like how this one goes together. Nothing really unusual about the appearance of this one, I guess we could say. So I think it's about time we crack into the aroma and see what we get from that. So let's do it then. Let's crack in and see how the Broken Clouds smells. Ooh, that does smell nice. It does smell very, very nice. yeah, straight away from this one, I'm going to say it just smells like a really big, thick beast of a beer. It really smells very, very nice. Everything you'd expect. There's nothing unusual about this beer when you consider what style it is, but I will say it smells very, very thick. But when they're saying that it's an oat cream IPA, to be honest with you, I'm really not surprised. I've said this in videos before, I often find that the oats are a very good indicator of how old a New England IPA is, and this one will have been in the can, I think, for about 4 weeks or something like that now. So yeah, this one will be, it's not at its absolute prime freshness, but I always find with New England IPAs, you don't want to drink them when they're right in the can, because then they just taste a little bit green. They might have been improving that recently, but that was always a perception I had of New England IPAs. You need to leave them about 2 weeks to get them in their prime. So this one will still be in very, very good condition. But I'll certainly say with the oats, what often happens in my experience with the oats is if you can smell the oats are a little bit drier, that's when you know the beer is a little bit older. But a good IPA should be able to hold up for, you know, a couple of months. I do agree with that. Other beer tubers will say that, and I do agree that a good and well-made IPA will be able to hold up for a couple of months. But yeah, this one I think smells really, really nice. It's definitely one of the thicker smelling ones that I can remember from Overtone, and I have had triple IPAs from them before. Emerald Shore, I think, was the last one, if memory serves me correctly, and that was very good. But yeah, the this one just smells absolutely lovely. So it's got everything you'd expect. Backbone on the beer, there's definitely a little touch of bread crust in there. You can certainly smell that a little bit of a kind of crisp, fresh white bread forming the backbone of the beer too. But on top of that, you can smell a little bit of a thicker wheat in there. But this beer is definitely more oat forward. It has that big, thick, creamy, oaty character in there. Yeah, the oats absolutely dominate this this beer. So really, really, really not surprised about that. But yeah, a little bit of bread crust, soft white bread in there. And then you can smell the wheat just kind of thickening out the bready character in the beer. But on top of that, it is all about the oats, absolutely. And really, as I say, nothing surprising about this beer in terms of its malt base and, you know, the type of things you're getting from it. It gives you everything you would want from this style. But on top of that, as we say, there's a nice big smooth oaty character to it. It comes across as really, really creamy, actually. But I get a lot of kind of Werther's Original out of this one. I do get a nice bit of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. So I do think that goes together, that does go together very, very nicely in this one. So sitting on top of that, I do get a teeny little bit of a kind of slightly sweet caramelly note out of this. There's maybe a wee touch of biscuit in there as well, so I would not be surprised if there's a bit of golden promise in this. There's just something about the aroma here that's telling me the biscuit, the slight brown sugary sort of thing, I think there is a touch of golden promise in this one. So yeah, that would not surprise me. But yeah, you can smell this one. This is going to be a big, very rich beast of a triple IPA. But I think that covers the malty side of things, all things we would expect, to be honest with you. So let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer. Let's do that. So the green component for me is quite nice. I mean, remember, New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition hopping and dry hopping, so you don't get quite the same pungency in terms of the green component with these beers as you would with an old school West Coast IPA, which also has the early addition hopping. Remember, early addition hopping is the one that gives you most of the bitterness. Late addition hopping will give you a little touch of bitterness, and then dry hopping doesn't give you any. It's all flavour and aroma at that point. But there's definitely a wee touch. You do get a wee teeny little bit of earthiness out of this one. Mosaic will give you that. It will give you a little bit of earthiness. But it's got quite a nice big bright floral character to this one. And I would say the floral character is bright. It's not spicy. It's not it's not spicy, it's not dry or anything like this. It is just quite nice and bright. There is a good little bit of grassiness coming out of this beer for me as well, and I think that's most likely to come from the Citra component. The Citra's always got that kind of slightly zesty character to it, so I think that's where the zesty character in this beer is coming from. But yeah, I do like how this one goes about its business, that's for sure. Yeah, aroma wise, this one I think is aroma wise on the green component. It is very nice. Quite floral leaning, but a nice little bit of a lighter grassy character in there. On the fruity side of things, it is kind of as I would expect. So it leans towards that big juicy orangey tangerine sort of thing that you would expect of Mosaic. Absolutely. Yeah, big juicy oily, more oily tangerine notes. But underneath that, I get quite a bit of smooth mango from the Citra. I don't get that much in the way of a more potent passion fruit. It is there, but it really takes a back seat to the kind of smoother mango for me. And I think there is a wee touch of the pineapple. So those kind of notes, of course, are coming from the Citra and the Galaxy that are in the backbone there. So I think the Citra is the one that's going to give you the mango. The wee bit of passion fruit is going to come from both of them, and I think the pineapple that you get is going to come from the the Galaxy for sure. But yeah, to me, this is a really it really leans towards a kind of orangey, tangerine side of things. I don't get the berry that they're talking about. They were saying that they had some berry notes out of this. I don't really get that in the aroma. There's maybe a wee tiny bit of gooseberry in here, which you can sometimes get from Citra. But to me, no, this is a big, juicy, oily, tangerine sort of thing with a bit of tropical fruit in the background. I think that's a fair summary of how this one goes. But, you know, I'm familiar with these hops. I know Mosaic quite well. And they're saying that this is Mosaic heavy. So, yeah, this should be quite nice. But, yeah, let's put the rest of this in the glass. And I think we can have a taste of this one now then. This is going to be a nice Sunday afternoon beer. So let me just line that up again and we can have a taste of this. So as I always say, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma of the beers before you get stuck into them. But we're going to try this now. So this one is the Broken Clouds, a New England triple IPA coming in at 10.5%, from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker in Glasgow. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's very nice. That is very nice. Definitely, first impression of it is it's definitely one of the more oily and thick New England triples that I've had from Overtone. That's not to take anything away from the other ones I've had from them in the past, but this one just certainly strikes me as being a wee bit thicker. But it could just be because I've not had a New England triple in quite a wee while. But yeah, that is really nice. Just a big, thick, creamy, juicy IPA, this one. You can't really ask for anything more from the style, to be honest with you. But you know, Overtone have been getting a lot of hype in recent times, and it's well deserved, has been well deserved. But what I would say is that a lot of the hype that these guys have been getting have been since their beers went to England, because everyone in Scotland always knew that these beers were pretty good. But then when they started distributing them down to England, that was when the hype train really kind of set off with this brewery. But it's good to see them getting the recognition they deserve, and their beers are being imported over here to Scandinavia. Actually, I see their beers quite regularly in Copenhagen these days. But yeah, it's great to see. But I'm just going to say this is another awesome one from Overtone. Their consistency is great. I really would love to see them do a black IPA. I think that's something they've not tried yet, actually. So, oh, that's good. That is good. So, yeah, where do we start with this beer then? So, straight away, across the middle of your palate, you can feel a nice little bit of that sort of bread crusty character. That just blankets the very middle of your palate. So, just sitting on top of that, you've got a nice little bit, just on top of that kind of bread crusty quality, you can feel there's a nice wee bit of a kind of white bready character in there. So you can feel it's got a nice little bit of that sort of crisp white bready type thing. And again, you expect this, you do expect this. So that if we focus on the middle third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of that kind of crisp bread crusty note. On top of that, you can feel a lighter, a little bit of crisp bread crust, wee bit of a lighter white bready character there, and then a touch of you can feel the wheat just sort of thickening out that white bready note. It's quite similar, the malty base in this beer is quite similar to what you pick up from the aroma, that's for sure. So, yeah, the bread crusty side, the bread crusty side of things, for sure, is forming a nice backbone there. But the whole beer kind of smoothens up the further that you go into the aftertaste, and it does thicken up on the malt base too. So yeah, a little bit of bread crust, lighter white bread, and then the smooth kind of wheaty character just sits on top of that and thickens out the whole thing. But sitting on top of the wheaty layer, you can feel that really thick, dense, creamy, oaty character there. So this is definitely one of these New England IPAs that leans towards what you would expect from the likes of Treehouse over in America. It really has something like that sort of vibe about it. So, yeah, in that sense, the oaty notes you can feel, if you go to the dead centre of your palate there, you can feel you've got like a big circle in the middle of your palate, so this big, thick, oaty, creamy sort of thing is there. Absolutely, you can definitely get that. But then in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel there's a wee bit of, there is a nice little bit of that, of a kind of sweeter brown sugary note there, so you can feel the big creamy oats there. The dead centre of your palate, there's a wee bit of a kind of more concentrated brown sugar, so I would say a wee bit of a sweet caramelly note there, but not too sweet, if that makes sense. But as you move out from the very dead centre there, it gets a little bit more kind of biscuity, like you get a little bit more of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of this beer. So yeah, the way that this goes together, I think, is very, very nice. Yeah. So yeah, as I say, bit of a concentrated sweet caramelly sort of thing in the middle of the palate. As you move further out from that, it's a little bit more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity like. Then underneath that, you've got a big sort of thick oaty. We've got a nice big thick kind of oaty creamy layer to it. So yeah, I really like how this side of things goes together. Actually, it's a really nice beer from the malty side of things, and it gives you, if you drink a triple IPA, you want to know it's a triple IPA. You want it to have that big thickness, and this beer really delivers on that. And for me, this is definitely one of the thicker New England triples I can remember having had from Overtone. It is definitely thicker than the Emerald Shore, which I'm pretty sure is the last one that I reviewed, the last triple that I had. But yeah, in terms of malt base, it gets a big thumbs up from me. Really big, smooth, creamy, oaty sort of thing, which is what you want. So I think we can leave it at that for the I think we can leave it at that for the malty. Pardon me, for the middle third of the palate in this one. Let's focus on the back third of the palate then. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate. Again, you get a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up in there. You can feel it's a little bit more bread crusty. Base of that back third of your palate, you've got a wee bit of a more, you have a little bit more of that kind of bread crusty sort of thing. On top of that, there's a little touch of, you get a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty thing. Then on top of that, you can feel the bready layer, and the white bready notes are a little bit more grainy on the back third of your palate. Remember, more bitter flavours come out on the back third of your palate, and the sweeter flavours come out more further forward. So yeah, a little bit of a more grainy bread crust, bit of a more kind of grainy, grainy wheaty character in this one, and then on top of that, you can feel the smooth oaty notes coming out of it as well. So I do like how that goes together in this one too. It's that is quite nice. But on top of all of that, on top of the kind of slightly more, the oaty layer is a bit thinner on the back third of the palate, I would say, but sitting on top of that, you can feel the yeasty component of the beer. So let's focus on that yeasty flavour now. So yeah, yeasty flavour for me, you can feel it's a little bit more of a kind of dense, doughy, bready sort of thing. It does have a wee bit of a kind of almost grainy bready character to it, a little bit of a dusty bread, but yeah, that sits on top of the back third of the palate. And as I always say, back third of your palate, the flavour feels a little bit taller, and as you come further forward into the middle third, it just condenses down a little bit, and the flavours just kind of squash together a wee bit more. So I do like how that goes together for sure. So the malty and yeasty side of this beer is very, very nicely done, and definitely thicker than some of the other Overtone ones we've had just from memory. Let me know your own thoughts about that in the comment section below. Actually, this is definitely the thickest one I've had from them so far. But let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, you do have a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic for sure. And as you push towards the kind of front corners of the palate, the floral aromaticity, the brightness of that just builds up and it becomes very nice and bright and floral toward the front corners of the palate. But round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is definitely lighter and more grassy, and there is just a wee touch of zestiness there. And I think that's most likely to be from the influence of Citra and Galaxy rather than Mosaic. The earthiness is most likely to come from Mosaic in the green component, but the zestiness and floral character is... okay, the floralness will come from all of them, but the zestiness on the grassy side of things will be Citra and Galaxy for sure. But yeah, that covers the green component for me. Let's look at the front third of your palate then. So the border region between front third between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a bready build up there. So yeah, nice wee bit of that going on. A little bit of a kind of yeah, definitely a nice little bit of a kind of bread crusty, bready sort of thing. The base of that front third of your palate is a little bit more the base of the front third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a bread crusty character, a wee bit of a kind of white bready sort of thing. Then on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll the way out of the beer. But yeah, sitting on top of that you get that nice you can just feel there's a wee touch of that kind of smooth oaty character. I think the smooth oatiness there, the base of that front third of your palate is a little bit of crisp white bread and also a wee bit of a smooth oaty kind of thing, and those fruity esters just sit on top of that. So let's examine the fruity ester side of the beer. Yeah. So fruity side of things, and this is quite an oily. It's oily and juicy at the same time, I would say. But yeah, if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, then for me there is a fair little bit of that pungent passion fruit, and that's Galaxy and Citra. Both of them are going to give you that. But as you move further forward, it mellows out a little bit. You start to get that big juicy mango that you'd associate with Citra, and as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, it's definitely a little bit more of it definitely gives you a little bit more of a kind of pineapple-y note for sure, and that lingers into the aftertaste. I find this beer actually does get a little bit more pineapple-y the further into the aftertaste you go, but the front half of that front third of your palate, it is all about the it's definitely all about the kind of tangerine orange, you know, it's that big oily tangerine character of the Mosaic, and that's really, really nice for me. That big oily tangerine orange just lingers there on the front half of that front third of your palate, and that's really what kind of characterizes this beer for me, is the big tangerine character, is the big tangerine note. Absolutely. I mean, this is one of these beers, we know these hops quite well. We know Mosaic, Citra and Galaxy very, very well. You've got new hops like, you know, Talus and Strata and all these kind of things, which are giving you really interesting stuff. But if you go back to a beer with hops that you know, this is one of these ones that just strikes me as being, you know, very, very well done. It's not doing anything really new, but it's just a really, really well crafted beer. And these days, with so many IPAs on the market, you can't really ask for much more than that, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think this is pretty awesome. So it just has to get a big thumbs up from me. This is a really nice, thick, creamy, and, you know, slightly oily New England IPA, but I think we've described the flavour enough. I think on this note we can move on to the mouthfeel. So definitely a full-bodied beer, there's no question about that. The carbonation is very, very smooth. As I've kind of indicated, it's a very kind of oily, creamy, you know, oaty, creamy and slightly oily beer in my mind. In terms of IBUs, what can we say about this one? Yeah, there's not a lot of IBU to this beer. I think this is, you know, a standard 25, 30 IBU beer, which is a bit surprising for a triple. Normally these can go up to 40 or 50 IBUs, but this beer is not bitter at all, to be honest with you. It's about, 25, 30 IBUs for sure. But the malt base is really, as I say, really nice and smooth, very, very creamy, a little bit of sweetness to it as well, which I like. Then you've got those big, juicy, oily, fruity characters too. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business. It's a big thumbs up from me, and yeah, I mean it's definitely as good as the other IPAs we've had from Overtone in the past, but definitely one of the thicker ones, and I've really enjoyed this. So big double thumbs up to Overtone Brewing Company for this. And I think we can leave it at that for this review. So yeah, this one was the Broken Clouds, New England Triple IPA, an oat cream Triple IPA apparently, at 10.5% ABV from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker through in Glasgow. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Overtone Brewing Company as well, and we will absolutely return to these guys at some point very, very soon. I do have one more Overtone beer that I brought over with me to review, so you can look forward to that for sure. But yeah, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.